The alleged killer of a former cabinet minister's husband goes to court. Acting Police Commissioner Clayton Fernander comments on the shooting of Rodney Adderley and the Prime Minister giving his speech at Expo 2020 in Dubai. Good evening, everyone. I'm Tyler Simonet with your JCN News for this Tuesday, January 17th. An alleged killer has his day in court today for a number of homicides taking place across the capital, particularly the murder of former cabinet minister Melanie Griffin's husband, Leon Griffin. With the details, we go to our Leah Cooper.
20-year-old DeMargio Lockhart, also known as Toons, according to court dockets, stood before Chief Magistrate Joanne Ferguson Pratt, charged today for 4 murders, namely Leon Griffin, the husband of former cabinet minister Melanie Griffin, and 3 attempted murders. Now, it's alleged that on Thursday, December 23rd, 2021, Lockhart, while in New Providence by means of unlawful harm, did cause the death of Leon Griffin. The next incident taking place on Saturday, August 14th, 2021. He was charged with 1 count of murder. The particulars are that on that same day, Lockhart, while concerned together with 28-year-old Braham Charlton in New Providence, did by means of unlawful harm intentionally cause the death of Lanisha Ambrister. He was also charged with 1 count of attempted murder, where it's alleged that on Saturday, August 14th, 2021, he, by means of unlawful harm, did intentionally attempt to cause the death of Drazen Dean. He was also charged with 2 more counts of murder. The particulars are that he, on Tuesday, November 23rd, while in New Providence, did, by means of unlawful harm, intentionally cause the death of Pablo Moss and Melvin Johnson. He was also charged with 1 more count of attempted murder for attempting to cause the death of Dion Bethel. Lockhart was again charged with 1 more count of attempted murder for attempting to cause the death of Leonardo Colley on Sunday, November 28th, 2021 in New Providence. Lockhart was not required to enter a plea and was remanded to the Bahamas Department of Corrections until April 28th at 10 a.m. for service of a voluntary bill of indictment for the murder of Leon Griffin, Lanisha Ambrister, and attempted murder of Drazen Dean. He will also return to court on May 9th for service of a VBI for the remainder of the matters. He was represented by attorney Ian Cargill. Reporting for JCN News, I'm Leah Cooper.
Acting Commissioner of Police Clayton Fernander assuring that the investigation into that police-involved shooting that resulted in the death of a leading seaman, Rodney Adderley of the Royal Bahamas Defense Force, will be fair. His comments come as concerns have been raised by the public that police officers will be investigating other officers.
Process will be fair, and all of the matters involving police shooting.
Now, last week, during the Office of the Prime Minister's weekly press briefing, RBDF Commodore Dr. Raymond King said there needs to be more emphasis on training junior members of the RBDF on protocols that ought to be followed when interacting with police officers. When asked if the Royal Bahamas Police Force will focus on training on how to deal with tense situations without the use of lethal force, Commissioner Fernander says this.
Yes, that is ongoing. Training is ongoing, and you will see the commissioner speak directly to that during his press briefing. But training, I totally agree with you. Training.
It was shortly before 4 a.m. last week, Monday, that officers from the operations unit were on routine patrols when they were dispatched to a complaint of a suspicious vehicle parked on Dunmore Avenue, Chippingham. On the arrival of the officers, they found a vehicle parked near a vacant lot and noticed a male on the inside. The suspect was ordered out of the vehicle. Once out of the vehicle, he charged at one of the officers and attempted to disarm him. Being aware of the threat to his life, the officer discharged his service weapon at the suspect, hitting him in the upper body. He was pronounced dead on the scene by EMS. Prime Minister Philip Davis says Expo 2020 is about the relationship between the people of the world. He made these comments at the Bahamas National Day ceremony in Dubai, while adding that having Bahamian presidents at the Expo is a chance for both friendship and tourism.
The promotion of friendship and cooperation through culture and the unyielding capacity of human beings to pursue a higher order of civilization through innovation and adaptation. It is a chance for countries to get to know each other better, or perhaps introduce themselves to each other for the first time. Many Bahamians here in Dubai have been surprised at how many people have never heard about the Bahamas. Our presence and participation are opportunities for both friendship and tourism.
During his speech, the Prime Minister invited the thousands of persons who were in attendance to the Expo to our shores and to get to know the Bahamas.
By building friendships, by exploring joint opportunities, and by working together to overcome the great global challenges of these times, this is how the spirit of Expo is kindled and will continue. This is what happens when we get to know the best of each other. Whether it is investment in a growing technological future or acting jointly to address the existential challenges of climate change, for each of us here, for all of us around the world, we can be certain that we are all in this together.
The Royal Bahamas Police Force Band, Shabak Choir, led by Clint Watson, a Junkanoo group, several popular Bahamian personalities and government officials are a part of the delegation who attended the Expo to give the crowd a taste of Bahamian culture. The acting Prime Minister and Minister of Tourism, Investment and Aviation, Chester Cooper, defending the government's choice about taking part in the Expo 2020 in Dubai, along with a large delegation. He says that his administration is restoring the Bahamas' place in the world. As the former government has done very little as it relates to international relations. Here's Laurencia Smith with that story.
With controversy surrounding the Prime Minister and the delegation of more than 100 to attend Expo 2020 in Dubai, acting Prime Minister Chester Cooper, who also holds the portfolio of the Minister of Tourism, Investment and Aviation, is the latest to speak out, defending the government's decision. Members of the press questioned the acting Prime Minister on Monday about the large delegation, while Mr. Cooper, in response, slammed the former government, charging that they did very little as it relates to international relations.
We are looking forward to regaining our space and our place in the world. We found that the former administration did not bring much focus to international relations. We are pressing forward abroad.
This past Friday, a statement was issued by the Office of the Prime Minister, and it was disclosed that the United Arab Emirates had spent $3.5 million to support the attendance of the Bahamas Pavilion, with donations also coming from the private donors, who contributed $500,000. Director of Communication for OPM, Latroy Raming, also revealed that the cabinet approved up to $1 million to support this venture.
Our Prime Minister is taking the role as promoter-in-chief to create opportunities and investment opportunities and touristic opportunities for our people. And I am delighted that we are playing that role in terms of showcasing our art, our culture, and all that we have to offer.
The World Expo takes place every 5 years. The next one is set for 2025 in Osaka, Japan. Asked if it's likely that the Expo could come to our shores, the acting PM acknowledged that these expos are a huge undertaking.
We have to live within our level of resources. We know, for example, that the UAE government has spent in excess of $3.5 million on the Bahamas Pavilion alone. So if you multiply that by the 160 countries around the world that they have supported in being there, you will see that it's a large undertaking. We are building diplomatic relations with the UAE as well, and therefore it is important that we have a proper showing in Dubai, and it's important that our standing in the world is regained, and I am delighted that our Prime Minister is leading the way in doing just that.
The Deputy Prime Minister says that he stands behind any statements made by the Office of the Prime Minister's Press Secretary, Clint Watson, that the Expo was an investment for the country. I'm Laurencia Smith for JCN News.
Former Minister of Youth, Sports and Culture, Iram Lewis, is calling on government officials to give an account regarding that cultural trip to Dubai that has been the subject of much public discussion and debate this past weekend. Mr. Lewis is also questioning whether the government has its priorities in order. Jarino Saunders has more in this report.
Members of the official opposition Free National Movement are questioning the numbers, the timing, and the value of the Bahamas participating in the 2020 International Expo in Dubai. In a statement released on Monday, former Minister of Youth, Sports and Culture Aaron Lewis said in the face of the most challenging economic crisis in the country, coupled with the worst global pandemic in recent history, it is simply difficult for many members of the society to accept the decision made by Prime Minister Philip Davis and his administration to spend an undetermined amount of the people's money on a cultural trip to Dubai.
Well, first of all, let me congratulate all the artists and artisans that made it on the world stage, hoping that this will be an opportunity for them to not only get some exposure, but for them to advance their careers. If you look around and you watch what's going on social media and mainstream media, it's not only the opposition, the entire country crying foul based on certain actions and activities that is happening in Dubai. The former administration, we did not give that priority to the extent where it would override what is going on in our nation. We have an issue right now with the COVID crisis. Our health crisis, the excessive funds could have been spent in that fight. We have persons out there who are still homeless, still hungry. We needed to shift and pivot, change their priority, and ensure that priority one, the health and welfare of the Bahamian people.
Mr. Lewis says the fact that the government could not itemize the associated costs, size, and purpose of the delegation was not only shocking but disappointing. When reminded that the F&M administration had already budgeted $1.7 million for the very same trip to Dubai, and that the nation had already committed to participating, Mr. Lewis says this argument by the PLP does not hold water.
I don't buy that. That's what they're saying. They are the government of the day. They are to be responsible. And I can say this. There was no approval given when I was there. I did not approve it. I didn't say it wasn't approved through my ministry. And in fact, I made a bold statement in my release that as a two-time Olympian, going to the Olympic Games would have been a pleasure for me. I would have loved to go to be a part of the delegation. But again, that was not priority. And we did make a decision to double the grant given to Bahamas Olympic Committee, ensure that the athletes had all that they needed. And we spent the money making sure that proper COVID testing was done. They had to take COVID tests during several daily periods or every other day while they were in Japan. So we ensured that funds were properly spent. There was no diplomatic delegation. There's no diplomatic corps. I think it's the first time in the history of the Olympics where the minister didn't go, the director of sports didn't go, the president of the B3A did not go, DOC did not go. Everyone stayed home, and we shifted the money where it needed to go.
Additionally, there has also been a lot of commentary on whether or not it is a conflict of interest to have Clint Watson, press secretary in the office of the Prime Minister, take his personal mass choir, Shabak, on the trip to Dubai. Mr. Lewis says Mr. Watson is not the one to blame in this instance.
Let me say this again. I can't blame Clint Watson, the press secretary. I don't think he made a unilateral decision to go. Those who made a decision to carry him, they are the persons that we need to question. So again, Clint and Mr. Watson and all the other artisans who made it over there, I'm not going to point my fingers at them because they didn't make the decision. They saw an opportunity, they were given a chance, and they took advantage of it. I hope that they capitalize on it as much as possible. But I'm not going to single out any one group, and I'm left that the Bahamian people be the judge and the jury. But again, if you think about it, they did not make the decision to carry themselves. Hold those who were responsible for carrying the large contingent and for making, again, their selection based on what criteria. Let them answer the question.
Mr. Lewis says this is a time when parliamentarians should be in session and about the people's business, not taking frequent pleasure trips around the world. He warned that Bahamians are watching carefully just how careless and negligent this current government is, especially as it relates to the scarce resources of the country. Jarino Saunders, JCN News.
You're watching JCN News. Stay with us.